Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. Hey guys, I'm Randy Younger, and this is a special episode of Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together, one frame at a time. And those people today are my great film critic friends. Today we have Rachel Kolb and Eric Godfrey, and also Dobby in the middle. Amazing.
Looking very fancy with her little bow tie.
Very dapper. I love it. Very good. Very good. So, guys, it's been a couple of weeks, I think. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Then I've had the chance to see some really good both streaming content and also some good live content recently. So on streaming, I actually just recently finished Renegade Nell on Disney Plus.
Hmm. Okay.
It is a British production, but it has a lot of familiar faces to American audiences, especially those who enjoy British TV. I would say that it's a cross between, uh, I would say like Pirates of the Caribbean, definitely a lot, like it's got a bit of Pirates of the Caribbean, it's got a lot of Robin Hood, it's
Hmm.
got like a little bit of like sort of like it's got some magical elements to it as well, which is really fun. And just has an amazing female lead at the center of it.
Okay.
Um, Also, a little bit of Scarlet Pimpernel because there's some political machinations going on. So
Okay.
I would highly recommend it. It's the whole series is available for streaming on Disney Plus, and I would love to see it get another season.
Now, is it in the realm of Willow? Is my question.
I would definitely say so. Yeah, there's actually even a character that is a fairy
Hmm.
that gives Nell magical powers that basically gives her like superhuman powers. Um,
Cool.
it's really well done. I would, and the writing is all very good. Good villain, just very good time. Lots of adventures in the forest. So very Willow.
And that name again?
Name of it is Renegade Nell, Nell.
Like the Jodie Foster film?
Yes, like the Jodie Foster film.
Very good.
Good
Very good.
call
Without
there.
the weird like horse language.
Yes.
Right.
And one more thing I'll just mention too. I also got to see Little Shop of Horrors off Broadway again this week, and I
Oh,
got to see the debut of Jinx Monsoon in the role of Audrey, and she was absolutely incredible. I know that tickets will probably be difficult to find for the next 8 weeks while she's in the show, but if our viewers can see it, I highly recommend it.
oh my God. Yeah. I love the 86 film. Rick Moranis killed it, and great soundtrack from Mark Shaman. So,
Hmm.
oh, wait, no, not was it Mark
No,
Shaman?
no. It was Howard Ashman and Alan Menken because it was their what they wrote right before writing Little Mermaid.
Right. They were on a roll, definitely.
Yep.
Eric, anything new for you? Any new series or movies?
No, just night one of WrestleMania. So
Okay.
looking forward to Roman Reigns versus American Nightmare Cody Rhodes tonight, and
Hmm.
hoping Cody wins the title.
Nice. And I know the Rock is back wrestling
The
and
Rock the Rock was back last night. He was quite the heel.
oh, good. Okay. All right. Well, if I were more into wrestling, I would expand on that. But I'm glad you're fully immersed in that world. That's very cool.
I'm back into it after a very long. Don't know how I found myself back into it, but just did.
Well, I'm sure the community is happy to have you back, sir.
I'm sure.
So, all right, guys. So the main purpose of this episode is we're going to be discussing. It's actually the 30th anniversary of the live action Flintstones movie, and this was actually a recommendation by you, Rachel, and I'm so glad you did because I would have. I don't think I would have thought of this one. 1994, we had the, the live action. Flintstones, starring the great John Goodman in the role of Fred Flintstone. We also have Wilma, played by Elizabeth Perkins of Big Fame and other films and TV projects. We also have Rick Moranis, who I think was slightly miscast as Barney Rubble. And then we have a fantastic Rosie O'Donnell as Betty Rubble. And basically, we have, a very Spielbergian type of production here. It's a year after Jurassic Park, so they're kind of still capitalizing on that franchise, that world, and it works pretty well here. You can definitely tell this movie's expensive, and they put a lot of care and attention into the production. The music is good. You've got David Newman writing the score. Brian Levant is the director here, and you'd probably know him best from he's done a lot of 90s family comedies such as Beethoven, Jingle All the Way, Snow Dogs, excuse me. And he actually did the prequel to this movie, which was Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas, which we're going to touch on a little later. But 1994's The Flintstones, I saw it when it first came out. I remember the McDonald's tie-in. They had actually they were really cool little Happy Meal toys,
Mhm.
all like little vehicles for each character, and it definitely expanded on that world a little bit. And I mean, rewatching this movie just a couple weeks ago, I had a great time. It was just a really silly adventure, and the acting was pretty solid. Also, you've got Kyle MacLachlan as the villain, and also
Yes.
a very early role from Halle Berry, who is sort of a villain. So the cast is solid. It's a great cast. The production value is there, and I mean, I don't think the story was that strong, but rewatching it 30 years later, I didn't really care because it's just a fun movie. So yeah, Rachel, since you brought it up, your thoughts on the Flintstones movie?
Yeah, I have a lot of love and affection for this movie because when I was a kid, my dad would do dad dates with me and my siblings. We would each get to pick something to do, and my choice was I wanted to go to the movies, and so we went to see the Flintstones, and we went next door to the theater to the TCBY for dessert after, which is the most 90s thing I think I could think of. Um, and I specifically remember him loving the joke about the garbage disposal about the garbage disposal being like the puppet underneath the sink. Um, that he just thought that was the funniest. Yeah, this movie, I think it actually holds up surprisingly well.
Mhm.
I think a big part of it is that for the most part they still used a lot of puppetry work, a lot of practical effects. They didn't lean too hard onto the CGI, with the exception, of course, of the work on Dino,
Right, right.
um, which it's cartoony enough that it's not terrible. It definitely sticks out as being something of its time
Mhm.
effects wise, but otherwise it's pretty good.
Mhm.
Um, and like as far as the story goes, yeah, the story is whatever, but it does give, I think, a few chances for some nice little like late stage capitalism digs. Particularly the jokes about the um how the higher ups at the company see their workers. I did love all the jokes, especially in the age of discussing AI replacing workers and replacing employees. That it's like, oh no, but we can't possibly automate the whole place because, well, what will happen to the workers? They've been here for years. And it's like, but we'll quadruple our profits. And he's like, cool, never mind.
Sorry to see him go.
I'll be sorry to see him go. And I think it's really funny, just like the level of talent that they got for something like this, even in minor roles. For example, Cheryl Lee Ralph, who is now an Emmy Award winner for Abbott Elementary, just has this tiny role in it as the adoption agent.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, I
Yep.
did recognize. I'm like, who is this lady? And
Yep.
that was a good role, act. It was a strong role, but
Yeah, and at the time she was probably best known for her role in Dreamgirls. So like even at the time she was, a pretty well known talent, and of course You have Elizabeth Taylor in what I think is her last film role
Yeah, one of her,
as
I think her final, yeah.
as the mother-in-law. Yeah.
As Pearl Slaghoople, Wilma's mother. Really ridiculous. You can tell that they paid a lot of money. This production is stacked, and
Mhm.
my you definitely mentioned the puppetry, which I'm not positive if that was the Jim Henson Company. I could be mistaken there, but it looked fantastic. The garbage disposal was ridiculous. I love I don't know if it was this one or the prequel where they use a little bird inside a box and they push a button, and that's basically a remote control. And the little bird would fly to the TV and push the button.
Oh,
I
that's
remember that from the cartoon. So
Yeah,
I think that
yeah.
must have been from Viva Rock Vegas then, because I don't think that was Santa.
yeah, yeah, that's I think I would have remembered that, but yeah,
Right.
it's that must be from Viva Rock Vegas.
So
Well, I
all
mean, that's the funny thing about rewatching it, especially because if I remember right, I forgot to read it, but I remember that Dino was supposed to be practical through the whole thing, but then of course CG, and it's like, no, we don't need to do a practical. We can do all this crazy CG stuff, and then it's like, and so you still see instances of the puppet Dino, of the practical puppet,
Mhm.
right.
and it's like, and it's so night and day. Which one holds up?
Yeah, particularly the close-ups, like
Yeah,
when he's like licking Fred's face.
and it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, so it's like you might have had to shoot differently, you might not have been able to do everything with the practical Dino, but it's like every time it's the puppet, it looks so much better than the CG, and it's like, yeah, it's like
yeah.
I probably could have told you that back then too.
I think I definitely take the practical over the CG any day. It looks so
Mhm.
good. And it kind of reminded me a lot actually of the Dinosaurs TV show from TGIF.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
Could be like the same universe, like the same.
Mhm.
That would have been cool if they like had a
Yeah.
little connection there. But
Yeah, I think ultimately with the Flintstones, what it does at the core is faithfully, very very faithfully recreate the cartoon. And so, like with Rick
Mhm.
Moranis, really, I feel like half the audition process was just give us your best Barney Rubble. Like, hey, hey, Fred, yeah, you're hired. It's like I even like Spielberg was basically dead set. John Goodman is the only one who can play Fred,
Mhm.
right,
and did everything in his power to make sure that John Goodman played Fred Flintstone. And
Yeah.
then basically, like even Rosie was hired because out of everybody cast, she was the one who could do Betty's giggle.
right.
And so that was so really that was the hiring process. Just like so Moranis clearly had the best Barney Rubble impression.
And I'll tell you guys, so in terms of casting, I'm reading now off here. So John Candy, Jim Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Chevy Chase were all considered for the role of Fred. Until I guess Spielberg came to the realization that, okay, John Goodman,
Yep.
this
Mhm.
needs to be Goodman, who he actually worked with a couple years prior on Always,
Mhm.
which is one of his lesser known films. It's like a romantic fantasy drama. But yeah, Goodman was in that in a supporting role, and I think he's done some other stuff with him since. But yeah, I think they knocked it out of the park with Goodman. I think he was perfect.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you
I could have seen Candy playing
Yeah,
it,
John
but
Candy would have been an instant
Chevy
choice.
Chase would have been a mistake.
Yeah.
That would have been an absolute mistake.
they said that with the exception of Candy, I believe, Belushi, Aykroyd, Murray, and Chase, they were way too skinny for the role. So
Mhm.
that was, yeah, I think and with Goodman now, I mean, he's definitely lost some weight in
Yeah.
his older years. So I mean, health wise, that's good. But back in '94, it suited him very well.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I love this cast, and
Mhm.
I want to just focus a little on Rick Moranis because he sounded good. He
Mhm.
looked the part, but I like I said, I rewatched Viva Rock Vegas, and Stephen Baldwin was actually Barney Rubble. And if you guys go back and rewatch that, though I don't really recommend you do because it's kind of a painful watch. I think Stephen Baldwin was the better Barney, in my opinion.
Hot take.
Very.
Yeah.
That's the
Wow.
hottest. Ooh, I'm burning here.
And I love Moranis. I have
Mm.
nothing but love. But Baldwin, he was great. He was really great.
Well,
So
I think what you're right. Like I think what this runs into, it runs into every because it's like I remember loving this movie as a kid because the movie at the core faithfully recreates at the time, like this is back when Cartoon Network was just Hanna-Barbera reruns, so it's like it was Jetsons and Flintstones, Jetsons and Flintstones,
Yeah.
and I think the thing is it's like people wanted a Flintstones movie, like they love the Flintstones, but it's like how do you make a movie out of a series that is basically just an animated honeymooners? Just
Yeah, there isn't
there's no
really much
story there.
to, yeah.
Yeah, it's Fred does
It's
something
all about the puns. It's
yeah,
all about like these
Yeah.
very like solved in 30
yeah, Fred
minutes.
does something
Yeah.
stupid. Wilma gets mad. Barney's like, "Oh, hey, Fred!" Oh,
Yeah.
and then everything's resolved, and we get the credits. And so
Mhm.
it's like, and so I feel like that's why it's like, can we do corporate espionage or
Yeah.
corporate embezzlement for the
And
Flintstones?
and the movie went through so many writers. Like there was
Yeah.
like a team of like maybe 20 writers or so. And
Mhm.
I think they said that this movie felt like a sitcom on steroids, which,
That sounds about right. I
Yeah.
like,
remember even Ebert was talking about like Siskel and Ebert ended up giving it two thumbs down, talking
mhm,
about how they're like the story no kid will understand it. But
Mhm.
I think maybe where the filmmakers were right was they're just like as long as we just put the most faithful recreation of these characters on screen, kids
yeah,
aren't really gonna care what they're
Yeah.
doing as long as they're doing
And
yeah,
I think also as much as like yeah, the cartoons might be also for kids,
it.
it's
Yeah,
also very much for the boomers
yeah.
and for like the older generations that grew up with it and will get all of those
I
jokes.
say this when when Fred's getting lynched in the town
Oh
square.
my gosh. Wow. Yeah, that's true. Very true.
There's a lot of heavy adult themes going on here. Yeah. And
Yeah.
at its core, right, Eric, it is for kids. It should be for kids, but
Yeah.
I think any good movie, like in the past like 20 years, all of the kids' content has also been aimed towards the adults, towards the parents, because it's a lot of
Mhm.
fan service and nostalgia. Like that's we currently live in an age of nostalgia.
Oh
And
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
back in 94, this movie was all about nostalgia. And I think it
Mhm.
was pretty faithful to the source material. So
Mhm.
I
And
mean, it yeah.
definitely a lot more accessible also than say like the Tom and Jerry live action one that we reviewed on the
oh
show
God.
together.
That was so bad.
Yeah, yeah. Like they spent so much time with characters that aren't the original characters on storylines that nobody's going to care about. The adults aren't going to care about, and the kids aren't going to care about.
Yeah.
At least with this one, even if it has corporate espionage stuff that maybe will go over some of the kids' heads, like there's lots of visual puns, there's lots of like jokes along the way.
Well, I
Right.
think a lot of that also is that even in the '90s, at that point, like even my parents, like I said, I was watching Flintstones. My parents would be like, "Oh, you're watching the Flintstones." So it was that thing of where there was the older generation who had done it, and the Flintstones were still relevant to the younger generation at that time,
Hmm.
like even to
Yeah.
my like me growing up. So whereas like Tom and Jerry, they're relevant in a pop culture sense, but
Hmm.
yeah, like nobody's watching Tom and Jerry as much as they were back
Yeah.
Yeah.
then. It's kind of like we never got the Jetsons movie, and it's like, well, outside of the animated one, we never got a live action Jetsons one, and it's like
I
at this point, probably best that we never did.
well, I would have actually loved to have seen a Jetsons live action in the 90s to like
In
kind
the
of
'90s, yes.
yeah.
Nowadays, I don't think I would want to see it.
Now it'd be like really awkward and weird, but I think
Exactly,
back
exactly.
in the mid 90s, if they connected it to this kind of a shared universe, I think that would have done really
Mhm.
well. And
Yeah,
I'm at
I like absolutely. It's like I'm genuinely shocked that after the because Flintstones was a huge success.
Hmm.
I
yeah,
was surprised they'd never moved on a live action Jetsons.
Yeah.
yeah. I think they wanted to do a live action Jetsons in the 80s with Chevy
Mhm.
Chase. But just
That I
something
could have seen.
it kind of just fell through, unfortunately. That would have been
Yeah.
cool. Um, yeah, so I love the production design here. It's very funny. We touched on the puppetry and the electronics that are, that you got the garbage disposal, you got the car where they're just basically running with the
Yeah.
car.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah, it's an incredibly faithful recreation of the old cartoon
Hmm.
in all
no.
those aspects. And to be
Yeah.
fair to the villain storyline, Cal McLaughlin is fantastic.
He is very funny.
I'm
Like
a fan.
they're drawn broadly enough that even as a kid, I was
Yeah,
like, he's the bad guy. There's something involving money.
yeah,
He's getting him to sign stuff, and he's not reading what he's signing.
he
And
is.
Halle Berry
Yeah,
is sexy and distracting
yeah.
him.
Yeah,
McLaughlin is
It's
deliciously
it's
evil.
just it's broad enough.
right.
I don't think it requires any
Yeah,
real thought.
Yeah. We know he's the bad guy, and we know that Halle Berry is sexy. Yeah, Kyle MacLachlan was perfect. they kind of redid that plot device in the prequel, Viva Rock Vegas, which was not really anything new. Have you guys haven't seen it, right?
I have
No,
not.
I have
Yeah.
never seen it. We were discussing last night. Eric said, I could watch Viva Rock Vegas, but then again, I could be doing anything else with it.
Yeah. Um, I mean, it wasn't like terrible, terrible, but it was watchable, and I just wanted to see how it compared to this one, which is pretty
Mhm.
cool. Mark Addy, who is a British actor, he played Fred Flintstone in that.
Everyone's favorite king.
From Full Monty also.
Oh, that's right, that's right. Oh yeah, Game of Thrones. I
And,
didn't
he was Robert in the
know.
first season of Game of Thrones.
He wasn't terrible. Goodman blew him out of the water, but he did okay as Fred. I remember him from a sitcom from the early 2000s called Still Standing, which
Hmm.
was just a standard family sitcom, nothing new. He's the father, yada yada yada. Um, but yeah, Viva Rock Vegas is okay. Alan Cummings is in it, and he plays Gazoo. If you're familiar with the original cartoon. Uh,
I am familiar with the Great Gazoo.
Yes, yes. It's a strange movie, but review at your own risk is what all I'm saying. But Rachel, I know you also want to talk a little bit about the illustrious career of Mr. Goodman, Mr. John Goodman. And I watched the first episode of The Righteous Gemstones last night.
Yes.
He's great. The whole cast
He
is
is
great.
fantastic in
He
that.
is a
Hmm.
wonderful patriarch in that. And we all grew up on his movies. He's pretty much started in Roseanne in the 80s and
Yep.
then kind of branched out into film and animated stuff as well. But Rachel, what are some of your favorite Goodman performances?
Oh goodness. Well, to tie it into the Flintstones, I will say I love Speed Racer, and his performance in Speed Racer as the father is really great.
Okay.
I that one again is just a case of uh, the people making it, just knowing the source material and just knowing how to translate that to live action in a way that is faithful and beautiful, and also uses a lot of CGI, but
Mm,
uses it in a way that doesn't immediately date it as much as, say, the CGI in Flintstones.
mm,
Um,
mm.
and one of my all-time favorite Goodman roles, I would say, is probably 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yeah.
I just incredible performance in that movie, just terrifying, and but weirdly, like, you just don't know if you can trust him. You don't know if he's crazy or if he's correct, if this is like the one time in his life that he's actually right.
Mm,
um like, as you said, Righteous Gemstones is such a beautiful use of all of his talents as an actor, that he gets to be a showman and a salesman in a way in this role as this mega church pastor. And he also gets to use his like singing abilities at times in the show, because him and his late wife were singers. Especially his late wife was known for her singing voice.
mm,
um, and he also just gets these moments to be completely brutal with his own kids, because his kids just are driving him crazy. Um, yeah, I think Righteous Gemstones has been such a great um, late career addition for him. It's just a wonderful showcase for his talents. And of course, Roseanne. You can't talk about John
mm.
Goodman without also talking about Roseanne, and the fact that I don't think that show would have worked without him.
Agreed. Yeah, he was fantastic. He just has a great presence about him. Just a
Mhm.
real, like, very fatherly,
Yeah.
kind of like tough because he's very imposing, but at the same time
Yeah.
very warm. And actually, there's a movie he did. He was Sally Field's husband in Punchline, a Tom Hanks dramedy from 1988.
That's the one about the stand-ups, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he was in that. He had a pretty small role, but he did well in that. For me, anything Coen Brothers, I love. And
I was going to say Barton Fink. I feel
uh,
like
Yeah,
if I had to choose one,
mhm.
which I don't want to, but I'd
yeah,
probably it's somewhere between Barton Fink and Raising Arizona.
Yeah,
as
he's also terrific in Oh Brother Where Art Thou. He really gets to be like he uses his presence in a very terrifying fashion in that.
Yeah.
yeah, he's not terrifying of Barton Fink at all.
Yes, Barton Fink as well. But considering that Oh Brother Where Art Thou was such a send up of the Odyssey,
Yeah.
and that they cast him as the Cyclops, I
Right.
mean, perfect choice.
Really smart, really good. The Speed Racer movie, that was the Wachowski brothers, right? Or sisters
Yep.
or
Yeah, the
Yeah, the
Wachowskis.
Wachowskis. Yep.
the
That
Wachowski.
was their follow up to the Matrix.
Yeah, nice.
Massively underappreciated.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think especially following up the Matrix, people had certain expectations of what
Yeah.
their next projects would be,
Yeah.
and I think it is worth another look by some people.
Absolutely. It is a little masterpiece.
Yeah. I have not had the pleasure, but I do love the Wachowskis. Didn't love Cloud Atlas, but
Cloud Atlas was an interesting. I don't know if it's a good movie. It was just an interesting experiment.
Yeah, I think what they were trying to go for in Cloud Atlas, I
Mm.
think they succeeded much more so in Sense8, which was their project for Netflix, one of the first big
Yeah,
original projects for
but it's
Netflix.
like between like Speed Racer, Cloud Atlas. I know we're not. Whatever.
Yeah,
At least the Wachowskis are always doing something interesting.
yep,
yeah.
yep.
Might not
And
be
they
good, but
and
it's
they
interesting.
and they definitely cast John Goodman very well in
That's
Speed
true. That's
Racer.
very true.
He's
Right.
very fatherly, very sweet and grounded,
Yep.
and yeah.
Mhm. I also want to mention Blues Brothers 2000,
Yes.
where Goodman took over the John Belushi part, basically, as a new Blues Brothers. And the movie's not very good, but he's excellent in it. I think he and
Yep.
Dan Aykroyd, they were fantastic. Their chemistry was just perfect, I'd say. And it was
Hmm.
like, no time had really passed for Aykroyd. It just felt like a natural extension of the original film. So I'm really happy. And I think Goodman has performed with Aykroyd at concerts. I could be mistaken.
Yeah,
I would not
I
be
think that's what
surprised.
kind of
Yeah.
started all this was the fact that Goodman basically stepped in for and then they're just like, oh, we should do another movie. It's like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Um,
I can't believe I completely forgot to bring up Lebowski.
um,
Oh, yep. The Lebowski.
yeah.
Like pretty much his most. I don't. It's still. I'd still say
Yeah.
Barton Fink is my favorite performance of his from a Cohen,
Yeah.
but Lebowski is certainly his most
And
iconic.
yeah, definitely most quotable and
Yeah,
best memeable
yeah.
performance.
That, yeah, Walter Sobchak, that's the character's name, and he is so memorable. He steals the show in Lebowski, and
Mhm.
every Coen Brothers film. Most recently about 10 years ago, he was in Inside Llewyn Davis as well, which he played kind of this older, I forget what his role was, sort of like an agent, or
Mhm.
he was just involved in the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it's a pretty brief cameo that he basically like
yeah.
role essentially has him because I
Mhm.
love Inside Llewyn Davis and you're right it's a very brief but it's just again you give him even 10 minutes of screen time he's going to hold your attention for all those especially when it's a Cohen production.
Yeah. No matter what the movie, he definitely has a presence. Even in the animated stuff, like he was fantastic as Sully
Yep.
in Monsters Incorporated.
Yes.
Really
Oh
sweet.
my goodness. I can't
Yeah.
believe this conversation went past and we almost didn't talk
I
about
was gonna say
Monsters Inc.
yep and
That
Monsters
is
Inc. and Monsters
one
University
of
yep.
one of I was gonna say two of my favorite Pixar movies. I love Monsters University and it is underrated and I will hear nothing else because it's surprisingly good.
Mhm.
I have to rewatch University. I remember not loving it, but obviously, you love the visuals. It's great animation. But it's basically a prequel with Sully and Mike
Mhm.
in college before they become scarers or technicians in the scare floor.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
again, chemistry with Billy Crystal, fantastic. And
Yep.
it just seems like Goodman is all about collaboration, and he's just easy to work with, which is really cool. And I hope he just continues to do that because he's just a great actor
Mhm.
and apparently a singer, according to Righteous Gemstones.
Yes. Yes. I was gonna say he even got to sing way back in Roseanne. I remember there was an episode
Yeah.
where he got up on stage to sing it like karaoke or
Yeah, he
something.
was it was Blues Traveler I think he sang with yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Doesn't he play a harmonica? I could be mistaken there.
I think
I
so
think
yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure.
If he doesn't play, he should because that was just a perfect image.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
you basically
Mhm.
see the seeds of him becoming a Blues Brothers
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
Roseanne.
Oh,
Yep.
really? Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's a funny connection. Cool, guys. So we just got a couple minutes left, and I just want to do some plugs. Eric, I guess I'll just pass over you. I,
Probably for the best, yeah.
okay, I'll get you one. We'll get
One
you.
day, maybe. One
Yeah.
day, maybe.
Rachel, any plugs today?
Let's see. So you can find me on Instagram at Second Act Bake Shop. You can find Dobby on Instagram at Dobby the House Doggo. You can you can find me over at Chisiamo in Manhattan, plating desserts on there over in the pastry section. Um, and yeah, that's just about it. Watch Renegade Nell on Disney Plus. I have no involvement with it. I just really love it. I want it to get another season.
Give her an endorsement.
Now I'm excited to see it because that sounds like a really cool series. It's a series, right? Or a mini
Mhm.
series.
Yep, yep, yep.
And as for me, you can catch all new episodes of Under the Radar on Sirius XM through Slam Radio every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Also, you can catch the video version of Under the Radar on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and that's every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And always feel free to check out the Under the Radar YouTube channel, where you can just see previous episodes, interviews, and other fun stuff. So, Rachel, Eric, thank you so much. This was a good one as always. And I want to thank also Dobby for being there as well.
Who is asleep, fast
Passed out.
asleep.
Yes, a lovely young man. All right, guys, I'm Randy Younger, and this has been Under the Radar, bringing movies and people together one frame at a time. We'll see you next time. Take care.